Hi, everyone. My name is Anna, and I'm currently based in the UK, where I work as a climate data visualizer for the European Climate Agency Copernicus. And first time I actually came across Datawrapper, it was back in 2016. After a few years in academic research, I was attending a master in science communication, and this tool was listed as a possible tool for data visualization. There was a free version, it was very user friendly, so I had a go. And this tool has become part of my professional life ever since, in a way or another. And today, in these 10 minutes, I would like to give you a brief overview of how and why I've been using data visualization while working in two very different organizations. The Times newspaper, where I worked as a data and graphics journalist for 5 years, and Copernicus, where I now help scientists visualizing climate data. So when I first joined the Times in 2018, at first I thought I would be able to swim in these open waters easily. But actually, I soon discovered that I really needed a sort of life vest to avoid drowning in all the requests that were coming our way every day. I really needed a toolbox I could easily go to when needed. And Datawrapper definitely has become part of this toolbox for me. I've been using it on a daily basis from day one. Actually, when I joined, the Times already had a company license and a custom design fitting its own style guide, which made our life a lot easier because it meant it was extremely easy for us to create several charts and maps every day in a uniform style, all ready to be featured on our website or to be picked up for the print edition of the paper as well. So over 5 years, I've created over 3,000 charts and maps. And of course, across the team, we have produced many more for daily news stories, but also investigations and features. I've really used it on a daily basis. And today, I would like to give you a few examples of our work. And if you want, for every chart that I will be showing, there will be a tiny QR code next to them. So if you have a phone and you want to scan it, basically you can interact with the chart yourself in real time while we talk through them. So this first example is to show you how basically a chart can help you find stories, especially when working in media. This chart was done in 2022. It was a very hot summer in the UK. And the news editor asked me to look for some data to back the story and, if possible, to find some extra news lines. So I've been looking at rainfall data for the first 6 months of every year since 1931. And instead of simply looking at the numbers in a dry CSV file, I've plotted them in a scatter plot instead, as you can see here. And a clear message came out straight away. Actually, 2022 has been the driest year in 46 years, which was quite a strong statement, a strong news line. And actually, it ended up being a top story for the next day. It was featured on the front page of the next day edition as well. And this is all to show you how a chart and a data visualization can really help you find some very interesting stories behind a list of numbers. In this case, the story was about skiing in the Alps and the lack of snow in recent years. We wanted to give some extra context to that story, so we looked at temperature data to see how countries across the Alps were warming up over time. And we created this table. We used the heat map option that is available in Datawrapper to actually recreate these climate stripes for every country. And we fixed the bottom row to be the global average. So any country you look for, you can basically quickly compare it with the global trend. And we fixed the top 4 countries to be actually 4 countries across the Alps. So it was really fitting nicely the story. But adding also the search button at the top left, actually users could also look for any country they wanted to know about. So this extends the scope of the chart outside the news story that it was sitting in. And this was, again, a chart for the same story. We wanted to show the glacier mass map must change over time in Europe. This could have been a simple column or bar chart, but I really wanted to give an extra visual element that makes the chart stand out a little bit more. And to give this idea of like melting ice, I've used a scatter plot. I've used a light blue color to give a sense of ice, and also some custom lines drawing from the top, just to give that extra bit of data visualization that gives a bit more of bit more sense of this ice melting over time. And over my 5 years at the Times, we've also experimented a lot with mix and match of various chart types. And in particular, we tried, where possible, to also mix them in bigger and more complex infographics to give some extra context to the stories they were sitting in. This specifically was used in a story about deforestation in the Amazons, and we've used a choropleth map to give a sense of the deforestation by region in the area, and a stacked column chart on the top right to actually give the main causes of deforestation, again, across time. Of course, another way we've been exploiting Datawrapper is to track real-time trends and changes. We've all been through a global pandemic, and we were tracking number of cases, hospital admissions every day. At the very beginning, we tried to, maybe in a very naive way, to track and update the charts manually every day, updating the numbers. We soon realized it wasn't sustainable, especially on the long term. So what we did was to write a few scripts in R and link our charts to through the Datawrapper API, which meant we could easily update them on a daily basis whenever new data were coming out. And we use the same approach in various different occasions. We wanted to track, for example, political polling data, weather warnings, any story where data sets were basically updated periodically. We adopted this approach to try to automate it, to automate the process. And then last November, I left the Times and I joined the European Climate Agency, Copernicus. And here I have the great pleasure to work with a lot of brilliant scientists who often focus a lot on their research and a little bit less on their data visualization. So Datawrapper came in very handy to show them the difference that just a little bit more love for your data visualization can make in communicating your research and your key results. And to give you an example here, this was supposed to be a column chart. This was a chart done a few months before I joined, and it was showing temperature change over time, and in particular the top 30 warmest months on record globally. And the key message we get from this chart is that July 2023 was actually the warmest. But my question was, is there any other key message that we can get from this data set? So I plotted them in a different way. And using a scatter plot, again, we have the key message that July 2023 was the warmest month on record. But we also see straight away that actually the 10 warmest months all occurred over the past 7 years, which is another interesting message coming out from the data. So really, the use of the chart and the choice, the chart choice that you make can really change the messages that go through. And Datawrapper, I think, is very good in this because you can easily switch from one type of charts to the other for the same data and really check what works best without the need of complex coding. Another way Datawrapper was very useful in these first few weeks in the new job was to preview some data and draft and prototype a more complex tool. In particularly, the team wanted to create a dashboard that people can use to navigate climate data. And they asked me to think about navigation for this new tool, what I had in mind. So I created a simple line chart again in Datawrapper, but I've added a few buttons at the bottom. And this allows you to basically navigate the data and to clearly see different decades or specific years and compare them together. So instead of a chunky data set, now you can actually look for different bits of it using the chart. And this was really the starting point for the development of the dashboard that we recently launched. It's called Climate Pulse. You can look it up online, and it's all free and open. And again, it all started from that simple chart with buttons to actually show different things. So to wrap it all up, this is all I've been through today in terms of what you can do with your data visualization and how you can use different types of charts to deliver your message in the clearest possible way. So thank you very much, and please do keep in touch. You can find me on X, LinkedIn, and I've also added my work email. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that talk, Anna. It was really, really fascinating. I have a question for you, if that's all right. So if you had to select two projects, one from each work environment at the Times and also now Copernicus, that, in your opinion, really illustrate the difference in doing data viz work at these organizations, what would they be if you're able to also reveal those, perhaps?
I would say probably the COVID tracker was kind of the key project we've been basically working on for months, unfortunately, but we had to keep it updated for really a few months. And I think the strength in that case of the Datawrapper API really was really clear, because without that, yeah, as I said, manually would have been impossible really to track all the changes. And here I think, yeah, this dashboard that we created, again, it's a nice way to provide people with a quite complex data sets sometimes, but a way for them to navigate it at their own pace, look for the details they're interested in without just throwing a chunk data set at them all at once. So giving that extra option of like navigation, navigate it for yourself and look what interests you more, and inspire curiosity as well in this topic, which is so complex.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw an example that you had with the buttons that just makes the whole thing also significantly cleaner and easier for someone that isn't
Yeah,
maybe familiar with this data and the complexity to sort of just zoom in on sort of bite-sized chunks. We
yeah.
have a question from Elana here. Regarding your work at the Times, you mentioned the use of the API for some automation, but I'm wondering if there are any particular workflows or processes that were built around the use of Datawrapper there. The team is producing so much great work, both in terms of quality and quantity, that I'm very curious if you have any insight you can share about how that worked.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, working on newsroom is never easy for the number of requests you get every day. So we trained our team internally. So whenever someone new joins, we give them a full overview of Datawrapper, of our, we have a custom style and also some guidelines like what to do, what to avoid for each different type of visualization. We also tried over times to involve the daily news reporter more and more every day in trying to do as much as they could with their, if they have a simple data set that didn't really need much of analysis, can they actually try and give it a go, basically themselves, play around a bit with Datawrapper. They could always come to us for questions if they got stuck, but quite a few actually picked it up and actually saved us some work. So yeah, just to share the workload a bit more with a broader newsroom as well. And I think, yeah, the more we went through it, and the more people actually got involved and excited about using this new tool.
Nice. Thank you very much. There's no more additional questions at the moment, but Anna did share her contact details. So if you have any more follow comments or feedback or questions, please do get in touch with her there. Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you very much.